Chinese grid method. With the Chinese grid method, we introduce some additional lines. We still do a 2 by 2 grid because we have 2 digits multiplied by 2 digits in our calculation. With this method, we need to break up each small square in the grid diagonally from top right to bottom left, like this. So each small square is split into 2 parts, like this. And what we're going to do when we multiply is split the answer. The number is split into tens and units. So our answer was 32, and we will put this 3 here and the 2 here. So let's put our numbers in. 2 and 7 can go along the top, and 1 and 4 can go down the side. This time they go down the right hand side of the grid. So the number goes across the top and down the side. It is usually easier to put the longest number across the top, but in this case they are both 2-digit numbers, so it doesn't matter. We are going to do 1 times 7, and the answer will go here where the 2 number would meet. Then we'll do 1 times 2, and the number will go here where the 2 numbers would meet in the grid. Then it's 4 times 7, and the answer goes here where the 4 and the 7 would meet. And finally, it's 4 times 2, and the answer goes here in the last square. So 1 times 7 is 7. There are no tens, it's just no tens and 7 units. So we put the 7 here in the bottom half of the square. If you want to, you can put the 0 in the top bit just to show there are no tens, but also so you don't put any other numbers in by mistake. Now we move on to the 1 times 2, and that's 2. So we put this here in the bottom half. Again, we can put a 0 in the tens half to remind us not to put anything else there. Now moving to the bottom row, we're going to do that now, 4 times 7. So 4 times 7 is 28. So this time we have some tens. There are 2 tens and 8 units. So the 2 goes in the 10 half and the 8s go in the units. Finally, it's 4 times 2, which is 8. There are no tens and 8 units. So put the 8 in the bottom and a 0 in the top of the square. So all the multiplying is now done, and we need to look at the adding up to find our answer. This time we are going to add up a slightly different way. We need to extend all these diagonal lines and put a diagonal line in front of each corner. Starting from the bottom right hand of the grid, instead of adding up its vertical columns or horizontal columns, we're going to do our adding up diagonally using the diagonal columns. So that is the purpose of the diagonal lines. We have 8. We don't add in the 4 because it's outside the grid. We only use numbers that are inside the grid. So we need to add up everything in that column. But all we've got is an 8, so we put it down here, under the grid, but still in the diagonal column. This is like the answer line. So now we move on to the next diagonal column, which is here. So we have a few numbers here to add up. So it's 8 plus 2 plus 7, which is 17. So as with any other addition, we put the units down on the answer line and carry the 1 into the next column to make sure we don't forget to add it. Then we move to the next column. So we have 0 plus 2 plus 0, and then we need to add on the carry of 1. So we have 3 on our answer line. And finally, we move to the last diagonal column, which only has a 0. So we don't need to add anything up, we just put the 0 in the answer. We don't have to write it in as there are no more columns, but you can if you like. If it was any of these other columns at the start or the middle, we'd have to write it in. But as it's the last column we are dealing with, we don't need to. So now we have an answer, and it is 378, as we got when we used the grid method. So that is how we use the Chinese grid multiplication method. With both the grid method and the Chinese grid method, we draw up the grid to match the numbers of the digits we have in our calculations. So a 3-digit number multiplied by a 2-digit number would have a grid which is 3 squares by 2 squares, and so on. Remember, you don't need to be able to use all methods, you just need to be able to multiply. It is important to choose the multiplication method that suits you best, and to stick with that. Mixing them about can confuse people, so it's best to stick to just one method.